Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is from Hills Handmade, and this is the Dream Drawstring Bag. I love drawstring bags, but I've never made one. I've always bought them, and this is kind of crazy because drawstring bags are going to be some of your simpler bags to make. I just never had a pattern, I never looked into it, so I was so excited when I saw that Hills Handmade was coming out with one. This pattern is going to have two sizes. I'm sewing up the small today, and you can see even though this is the small, it's still a great size bag. And so of course the large is going to be a lot bigger than this one. So for mine today, of course I'm choosing a beautiful panel print. This drawstring bag is going to be great for your panel, so if you have a panel, definitely use it here. This panel is from Jen's Fabrics. It's available for pre-order right now. This will be your top front exterior. This will be your back top exterior. This is again a print from Jen's. Since I was using like a Mickey and a foam print on the outside, I thought I'd go a little darker for the inside. So I'm actually using this print. This is from Zombie Bunny, and this is the villains. I thought it would just be such a cute way to do it, having the Mickey and Minnie on the outside, Disney sweethearts, and the villains on the inside. All of these prints are cotton woven. All of them are interfaced with my Royal Pixie Light, which is the interfacing I always use. I cut these according to the pattern measurements. I have not made any marks or anything else on them. I will be doing that a little bit later as we go on. The next thing we'll need is two bottom exterior pieces. I'm going to be using a vinyl. In mine, I just grabbed some scraps of vinyl, and I did not add anything to the back of these. I'm going to add one interior slip pocket, and I am not interfacing this piece, just using a piece of cotton woven. I'm going to have two connectors. This is going to help hold the drawstring in place. Speaking of the drawstring, you'll be using paracord, and I actually don't have any on hand right now. I'm hoping to go to the store and grab some before I do this video. I do have some cording here, but it's not a really thick cotton cording, so I don't think I'll be using it. So I'm hopeful that I can get it beforehand. If not, I could always use what I do have on hand. It's just not what I wanted to do. But I do have the two connector pieces. I'm cutting them out of a raw edge material, so I don't have to worry about doing anything with these two pieces. Since I'm using cotton woven in my bag, I am going to be using two pieces of bias binding. The pattern tells you could just buy a pre-made. I didn't have any, so I just grabbed some of the lining. I didn't interface it, and I just cut it and folded it into little strips. Double fold so that the raw edges are all tucked inside. If you choose to use like a waterproof canvas or a wax canvas or something that's non-fraying for your exterior lining, you do not need these binding strips. I just typically use a cotton woven or cotton canvas, so I went with the binding strips. The only other thing I'm going to add is a tag. Of course I need a tag, and since this is the Dream Drawstring, I felt it would be perfect to use this tag from Heartwood and Hide. If you watch my videos, you know I'm obsessed with the Heartwood and Hide tags. I love them, and this is one of their newest ones, and I'm in love with it. These are the pieces we are going to need to create this bag. So you can see it's a very quick cut. I really think for Christmas I'm going to do several of these, and I will use them as gifts and put a gift inside. I think my kids will appreciate that, and other people could use them. I just think drawstring bags are such a fun thing to use, so convenient, and have just so many purposes. So let's get started. I'm going to put all these little pieces out of the way. I will go ahead and work on my slip pocket and go ahead and attach the bottom pieces. I'm just going to do a basic slip pocket. I'm going to fold these short edges together, add a few clips here. I'm going to sew down one side, pivot, go to the middle, back stitch, leave an opening, so break my stitches there, come over here, start sewing again, back stitching, and go down and end at that corner. So basically we'll leave an opening here and sewing down the sides, and then we will turn it and have our slip pocket ready for the lining. Super simple way to make a slip pocket. I'm going to work on the exterior pieces, so I'm just going to slide those interiors out of the way. To attach the bottom of this, we're just going to take the exterior front and your exterior back, take one of these bottom pieces, place them right sides together, clip them along that raw edge there at the bottom. You are going to sew along that bottom raw edge with the seam allowance in the pattern, making sure you back stitch when you start and stop. We will then flip this down and go ahead and do a top stitch to get both the front and the back panels done and ready to go. Now that we got that bottom sewn on, just flip it down. You are going to push that seam under the vinyl. We're actually going to top stitch on the vinyl piece with that seam behind it. Okay, I got that front piece done. Look at the stitching on that vinyl. So beautiful. I love it. I love sewing with vinyl on my domestic machine because I get such a pretty stitch, but I have to be careful with bulk. But this pattern's great for you to kind of play around with vinyl, try it out a little bit if you're new to it without having to worry about adding too much bulk into a bag. I did sew my pocket piece. I'm going to just snip off the corners at a diagonal and then turn this inside out. I think I'm going to take mine over to the iron. It's a little bit wrinkly, and press it flat, and then we will come back and look at it too. I'll go ahead and add the bottom the same way, and when I come back you will see both exterior pieces done and the slip pocket will be ready to attach to the lining. So I have the front and the back completed. I'm going to set my back panel to the side and work on the front. I also went ahead and completed the slip pocket, but I'm going to set that aside also while I get things taken care of with this front piece first. I'm going to pull out my two connector pieces. All I'm going to do is simply fold them in half, and then I'm going to place these right underneath the top stitching. The pattern tells us how much overhang we should have that will overhang off the end of this bottom piece. I'm going to put a clip in place on that side. Do the same thing on this other side, and then I'll simply baste these in place. These will be used to hold that cording, that paracord for the drawstring there at the bottom. So now I have both of the connectors in place. I'm going to pull out my tag. Now the pattern tells you how far above this bottom to place your tag, but I want my tag to be a little bit higher and a little bit closer to Mickey and Minnie. So I'm placing it there. I'm going to take the time to make sure I like the placement of it. I'm going to add just a little bit of glue. I always add this Beacon 3-1 just a little bit underneath to kind of hold it in place while I'm sewing around so it doesn't shift too much. So I will go ahead and sew this off camera so you're not having to sit and watch me do that. I do pull the threads long and then knot them in the back. And so when I come back, I will have the tag sewn on, and then we will work on adding the slip pocket to the lining. I sewed my tag on. It looks absolutely amazing. Could not have found a better tag for this bag. I'm going to set this aside just for a minute while I add that slip pocket to the lining. I went ahead and clipped the center mark of my lining piece. The pattern tells you how far up from the bottom I'm going to be centering at that mark. And then I'm just going to sew around the top side down to the bottom side, across the bottom, which will close up that opening in mine, and then back up this other side to the top. I'll back stitch, of course, at the two top spots because it'll have a lot of pressure where that is where you'll be going in and out of the pocket. Okay, I'm coming to my first corner. I'm just going to pivot and keep going all the way across. I'm just doing about 1/8 of an inch away. When I come to that opening, I'm going to make sure that I take care that those opening lining spots are closed and even so that it looks nice and neat on that final top stitch. The lining slip pocket is attached. What we're going to do now is pull back out that exterior piece, set this lining aside. We are going to add those 2 binding strips. Remember, if you are using a raw edge material like a waterproof canvas, you can skip this step. This step is only for those of us who choose to use a cotton woven or canvas, something that can fray. I'm going to take these 2 pieces here and I can open them up. You can see it's just a piece of double fold tape. I'm going to attach them, and the pattern does tell you how long you cut these, the length. She doesn't give a specification as to how wide, so I just ended up making mine about the size of the seam allowance. Mine might be a little bit longer. Mine might be actually 1/2 of an inch wide, and so it's not really too big of a deal, but just have maybe around 1/2 to 1/4 of an inch. Go ahead and line up the raw edges there at the top and have it just clip down to the bottom. Going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we're just going to stitch this in place with the seam allowance given the pattern, and this will just keep that raw edge from fraying. Now, to be honest, I do have this interfaced. Chances are that interfacing would keep anything from fraying for this little bit, so I definitely could have skipped this step. Waterproof canvas, you don't need this, and probably if you had interfacing, it'd probably be kind of tricky for this to fray anyway with that interfacing attached. Okay, I have those pieces attached. At this point, all I have left is my 2 exterior, 2 interior pieces. Everything's ready to be kind of figured out, those last few steps, and put together. First thing I'll have to do though is I'll have to go off camera and make some measurements. I'm going to make the measurements and cut out the bottom squares. The pattern gives us those measurements. I'm also going to have a make a mark from the top of the exterior pieces down. So she gives us that measurement too. I'm going to go off camera because I will be using a ruler and making those measurements. I'll show the measurements, and I'll show also that my corners are cut out when I come back. I just don't want to do them on camera because this is specifically a cut and measure pattern and I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. So I'll come back once I have those measurements made. So I went off camera and I did a couple things. The first thing I did was I trimmed off the corners, or I cut out the corners. I want to make note that the exterior corners are a different measure than the corners you cut out on the lining, on the bottom of the lining. It's a different measurement, so take note to make sure you don't cut them all out the same size. So pay attention to the pattern measurements for that. The second thing I did was on these exterior pieces. You can see I folded down this top exterior. This is how we're going to create that channel lock for that paracord or your cotton cording, whatever you're using, to be able to go through. So the pattern tells us to fold this part down. It gives you the exact measurements of how much down this will be folded, so you can actually take your ruler and measure this section here. You're going to do this on the front and the back exterior. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come in, and she tells us how far down we're going to sew. If you want, you can mark that measurement on your sewing machine, and you can just use that as the seam allowance. If you don't want to, you can actually draw a line with chalk or your friction marker, something that can be removed at the end, and do that. But we're going to stitch on that line she gave us, on that measurement, on both the exterior front and back to make that channel lock. The other thing we're going to do, and I'm going to go off camera to do this step, is she tells us to draw a line down from the top interior. You can see my line there. Now what she tells us to do is use a piece of double-sided tape and then fold this down to that line. You know, if you watch my videos, I do not use double-sided tape, I use glue. On this, I do not use that typical glue. What I do is I just use a glue stick. Weird, I know, but what I'll do is, I'm not going to do it here, because what I do is I put a pretty decent layer of the glue stick on there. I fold it down, and then I take it over the iron, and I use that iron heat on it immediately to kind of really get that glue to set. It does not leave it stiff. It doesn't like seep through or cause any problems at all. I use glue sticks almost daily in my sewing room. It is something I like to use a lot whenever I'm doing certain steps or things, just to kind of keep it secure before I can sew it. Now, could you just take this over to the ironing board and iron it flat and have it stay that way? Sure, probably could. It's just I use the glue stick to kind of help it stay secure. So try that tip out if you want to do it. Use double-sided tape or just use the iron and just kind of crease it down. Whichever way you prefer is fine. So I will do that part off camera. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and sew this channel lock on there so that we can use that to have a place for our cording to slide through. So I got this under the needle at the exact spot I want to be able to sew that line. I'm going to be able to follow the seam allowance exactly. I'm going to make sure I backstitch really well when I start and stop, and I'm going to do this on both the front and the back of this exterior piece. I'm going to do that same stitching now on the back exterior piece. Okay, both of these pieces are done. I'm going to now take the exterior front, the exterior back, just going to put them right sides together. They should match up pretty perfectly at this point. I want to make sure I match up down here at the seam. I would rather trim up a little at the top if necessary than to have these seams off. I'm going to put a clip there. Let's just be honest here. One of mine matches it perfectly, one of mine doesn't. Obviously, I messed that up. I'm going to be okay with leaving it, but you know what? In hindsight, if I were you, I would check by laying these two pieces right sides together before you sew down this measurement. Just between us, check yours first so yours won't be perfect on one side and then a lot of overhang on the other side. It's okay, it won't affect it in the end, but I know it and you know it. So now we have these two pieces clipped together. We are not going to sew past this line we drew. So we will start sewing right where that stitching is. We will not sew any up here because we want to be able to have that cord to go through there. So we will start sewing here at the line and use the seam allowance in the pattern, back stitch here, and go all the way down till we get to that bottom edge where the corner ends. After we do that on this side and this side, then of course we are going to sew across the bottom the same way. Then we're going to box our corners. I'll show you how I box the corners after I get all this stitching completed. Okay, we have that done. Make sure your openings are completely open like this. We do not want those top edges attached at all. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open it up, go inside, and separate these two pieces. Now you have a choice. You can be the one that butterflies these seams, or you can have them nested closed. It is kind of a personal preference. I've heard arguments for both ways, so I can just kind of feel and see which way I like. I think I like it nested better. It feels a little more secure to me, so I'm going to do it that way. One reason is this vinyl of mine is very slick, and so when I was opening it up, it was sliding more. So I'm going to keep mine like that. I just have it closed that way. Feel free to open yours and butterfly those seams if that's what feels better for you. This one, I think with this vinyl where it's so slick and it's just sliding around, I'm going to do mine this way. Do it again on that other side. And this is something to note. Whatever way you do it on this side, make sure you do it the same way on that side. So if you butterfly on one side, butterfly on the other side. If you have your seam going down, make sure your seam is going down on the other one. This will just make for a nicer finish and to make sure that the seams lay properly and the bottom of the bag lays properly too. Let's go ahead and sew those corners with the seam allowance giving in the pattern. I have my exterior done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, like I said, with the glue stick and iron down my interior piece so that it is ironed to that measurement given the pattern and its edges are folded down. And then I'm going to go ahead and complete the same steps by sewing the sides, the bottom, and boxing the corners. I will do all of these steps off camera and then I will come back and show you how the lining is looking. Kind of laughing at myself because I just realized, of course, I was supposed to sew these little binding strips on the front and the back of that bag because, of course, we don't want it to fray on either side. It's okay. Like I said in the beginning, honestly, with this interfacing, I do not feel like it'll fray. Like I'm trying to pick it across right now and nothing, just one little piece is coming there, but it's not really fraying. So I feel like I'm okay. But I will have just kind of an unfinished edge there on that side. Lesson learned. I'm going to cut in and put a title on that you want to do this to all 4 sides. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and flip this out. I have the lining done also. I'm going to trim up these edges here on the exterior real quick. Trim those up and let's push this all out. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my lining, and the designer suggests you have that slip pocket towards the back, and so I'm definitely going to do that. This is the small, and man, this is just a great size of a bag. I really like this. I really definitely want to make the large size too. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to separate these seams, and what she tells us, so let's flip this. Let me do it on this side because I think you can see the stitches a little bit better on this side. Here's our stitches. We're going to place this lining so that it's just there against those stitches. That's how we're going to sew this on. We don't want to sew it up here because we want to leave this completely open for that drawstring cording. So I'm going to match up my centers and open them up. And she just puts a clip right here. You can see that picture in the pattern. I want to tuck that one in this, so it kind of goes in there. Add that clip right there. And so then what she says to do is to use double-sided tape. Now if you know me, you know I do not like to use it. I've said it already before in this video. I'll say it again. I'm not going to use it. So what I'm going to do is be really careful, go really slow, and hope that I don't have any problems getting these two to stay together and sew it in a straight line. Since I have that row of stitching, I feel like that's really going to help me to be able to have this look really nice without any problems. Wow, that lining, I love the way it fits. So what I'll do is I'll pull this apart, kind of open everything up. If you were doing the double-sided tape, what you would do is you'd put it down right below that line of stitching and then just lay this on top of there, and that would kind of hold that in place. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to stitch all the way around, going really slow and watching to make sure, like each stitch I take, I'm going to be adjusting and checking, and I'm going to sew all the way around the perimeter of this bag to finish it up and close everything up. I got everything finished sewn together. Look at how good that lining fits. Just love it. The only problem I've made is just with that little spot I told you here. It's okay, it's not too bad, but I do wish I would have done that. It's not worth me taking everything apart and going through it again, so I'm not going to worry about it. I did decide, because I'm so excited, to go ahead and use the cording that I had. This is actually window blind cording, so it's kind of small, and it's not really what I would have preferred to use. But I'm just going to do this anyway because I really want to get it done. So what we do, you start by going up through the bottom here. So we take the cord and put it through that bottom connector. And then what we do is we're going to take this first side and we're going to go through the back channel. So I'm going to fit it in here and what she tells us to do is to put a safety pin on the end of this. I'm not going to put it on here, like I said, I'm not doing this on camera, but you'll have this safety pin and you'll start feeding it through this channel. You're going to go all the way through here. It's going to be a slow process. You're going to have to go slow. What I'm going to do also is I'm going to try to get my hemostats to go through this side and maybe even get it a little quicker to grab it and to pull it. That is how I'll do this one, going all the way through the bottom. And then once we get it through the bottom on this other side, we'll go on the front. So I'll feed it all the way through this one, come down to the bottom to tie it off on that same side. That will be how I'll finish this side. So I had a little trouble. I had to cut my cording a little bit because I messed up once. So mine's a little short. So if you're like me and new to drawstrings, I suggest making yours longer than even the pattern says. You can always cut down, but I was struggling like, oh, mine's going to be too short and I'm going to have to start all over. So if you are new to doing drawstrings, cut yours longer. What you do is you start at the bottom. You put the one string that goes up. And so that string will go around this side, but it will go all the way around. So both strings will go all the way around the bag. It's just one will start here, go the front, and then go the back, and then come out, come down here and tie. The other one will come up from this side and start and go in the back, and then go all the way around. But I have everything done, and I am so in love with this. It is so cute. There's the back, and let's look inside. That lining fits wonderful. I don't know if you can see it because the way I have my camera angled, but that lining is just stunning. I love it. I love it. My prints for the front, this panel, and the back are both from Jen's Fabrics. This print inside, the Villains print, is from Zombie Bunny. It's super cute. It's my first order from them, and I really like their print. The quality is really nice. This pattern is the Dream Drawstring from Hills Handmade. My tag is from Heartwood and Hyde. I'm going to have links for everything. Here it is, fully cinched up. You can see even with the panel, you can still see the panel with that cinch. Plenty of room. I love these. I will definitely be making more super secure once you cinch it up. You're going to have to actually kind of pull it hard to get it opened again. This is the type of bag you would see in one of those Disney stores that would be so expensive. If you are going to the Disney parks, this is a great thing to take. It's a great item. I'm just in love with it. Really loved how it turned out. Loved how it looks. Super cute. Can't wait to share it with everybody. Can't wait to make more of these. Thank you so much for watching another one of my tutorials. Thank you, Hills Handmade, for making a pattern that I really like and I'm excited about. This is a practical pattern that we could all use, especially those of us that travel. And even if you don't travel, super great for storage and errand running. Great for kids. Just a wonderful bag. Thank you for letting me do the tutorial, and thank you guys for watching another one of my videos. I hope today in your sewing room you're able to sew something that's fun and practical and just makes you happy with how beautiful it looks. Thanks so much for watching, and you guys have a great day.